Trump has announced the tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China, and this is going to be devastating for all parties involved, including the United States. So this feels much like a controlled economic implosion and demolition. So we're going to get into the details here, and obviously there is going to be catastrophic consequences if these tariffs remain in place for months on end for all the economies involved and the global economy as a whole. We have been talking about on this channel for years about the yield curve inverting, the fact it uninverted last year, which typically means you're 6-12 months away from an economic implosion. And here we are, because that was in the summer of 2024 and we're here in the winter of 2025. And it looks like this is all orchestrated. I mean, you cannot say otherwise. It is one man that is doing this. And I mean, you have to laugh because otherwise you would cry. But I mean, and I don't know where this goes for Canada either. I mean, this could end with Justin Trudeau in the Emergencies Act again, because he is clinging on to power. And he could turn the country into a dictatorship and say, hey, we need to do this. It's an emergency again. It's a crisis. So we'll have to see what happens with that. But yeah, not good at all. So President Donald Trump moved forward Saturday with his plans for tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China, ending a guessing game about how aggressive he would move to penalize America's three largest trading partners. Tariffs on imports from Canada, Mexico, and China are signed. So this was the person, I don't know who he is, but one of the Trump people who posted it on X there. So the tariffs, as Trump has promised since after his election win, will be 25% duties on Canada and Mexico and 10% on China over issues of fentanyl and illegal immigration. And, you know, I'm not sure if he did this on purpose, but he's been pretty vague with what he actually wants to resolve those. And that might be because this is all part of a game and a tactic. So in a week, he can reverse course and say it's solved because he was very vague about what his demands were in the first place. Because it's like we said yesterday, he backed himself into a corner where he had to move forward with this, whether or not everybody thought it was going to implode the economy or not. But this is going to have ramifications for the global economy. The United States is not going to be great again if these tariffs remain. Oh, God. I am speechless, and that doesn't happen very much. But yeah, this is so Trump is declaring a national economic emergency under the 1977 International Emergency Economic Powers Act, IEEPA, which allows him to impose the duties. And I'm guessing why is from a legal standpoint, he has an agreement with Canada and Mexico for trade, and probably maybe with China too. I don't know about that one. But for Canada and Mexico, this was an agreement that he negotiated, his administration. So just remember that when he's saying they're so bad to us on trade, on an agreement that his administration was negotiating. But anyway, it's pretty interesting because it's very authoritarian when somebody uses powers, you know, whatever act it is, the Emergencies Act, the IEEPA, to seize powers to do these things. It's one person at the end of the day. It's not like it's going through Congress or anything like that. It's absolutely, it really is crazy. I just can't understand how anybody like in the US supports this, and they must have no idea that they're going to be paying a lot more for everything on the back of this. In fact, everybody is. There's no hiding that. But duties on crucial energy imports from Canada will be lower initially at 10% on those products. The carve-out was an acknowledgement of US and Canadian energy interdependence, So yeah, they're doing 10% on oil. You know, he said the 25% tariffs could rise. We'll have to see how this goes. I mean, this is just going to have such wide-ranging economic implications. I just can't see this lasting for more than a few weeks. And if it does, like I said, this title is no joke and the thumbnail is no joke. It is over. Yes, it will be like an economic demolition of all the countries, because even if his agenda is to bring back all the manufacturing, you can't do that in a couple of weeks, and you can't do that for a $0 cost either. So, and again, I mean, I think this is great for China, and China, he is often painting China as the enemy, but China is really winning from this, because as he puts these tariffs or sanctions or whatever else on more and more countries are looking around and going, we need to diversify away from the United States. And unfortunately, if you read through history, this is what happens when a superpower's on their last legs. And that doesn't mean that America won't dominate, the United States won't dominate for the next 5 to 10 years, but they're definitely on the way down, and they're dragging all the economies down with it, and they will unfortunately implode first. So Justin Trudeau said Canada's ready with a forceful and immediate response. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau posted on Friday. Canada says it has a plan in place and has floated a range of ideas like retaliatory tariffs on goods from Florida or introduced to whiskey. I mean, they do a lot of trade. Like Canada and Mexico do a lot of trade. So I think it's stupid to just sit there and say that the US has all the leverage, because that's not really true. Sure, they're the biggest player in this, but Canada has leverage. If they actually join arms with Mexico as well, they could in fact have more leverage over the United States. But is that a good idea? I mean, that's really going to be testing Trump, and I'm not sure that that's a good idea. And the fact that he's putting the tariffs on oil is going to be really interesting, because that's going to impact energy prices immediately when markets open. Obviously, we know right now Canadian dollar closed up at a low, and basically the Canadian dollar, let me just refresh this. The Canadian dollar closed up at this low here on Friday. And basically, we're going to have to see what happened. The low was 68 cents 54, but it's really close to it. It's within like 30 cents of that low. So I'm expecting, I don't know, but markets are just going to open and tank on the back of this news, because it's not good for any economy, and the dollar would strengthen on the back of it. Obviously, we know layoffs and unemployment, they're going to go up in both Canada, the United States, and Mexico. I think Mexico has the most to gain from this, because actually you will see more manufacturing that still moves to Mexico, because if they're exporting to other parts of the world, not the United States, they're going to want to avoid the United States because it's tariff heavy on everything flowing through it. So less and less countries will want to do trade with the United States because everything's got tariffs on it and it's more expensive. So that's why tariffs just don't work as an economic policy. And then they basically came out, so this is in the United States, but saying these tariffs could translate into a decline of $1,250 in annual purchasing power for a middle-class family. EY chief economist Greg Dacko has taken a macroeconomic look and estimated that US GDP would contract by 1.5% in 2025 and 2.1% in 2026 if the tariffs kick in. And obviously they've kicked in. And what does that mean? That means severe recession, guys. And that means severe recession for the entire global economy. I mean, it's bizarre because the real estate worries are the least of Canada's concerns right now with everything going on. I mean, this is a literal economic demolition that is happening right in front of our eyes. And don't forget that this is not just Canada. It's the United States. It's Mexico. It's the largest economy in the world. It's like a controlled economic demolition. I mean, to say it reminds me ever so slightly of when the pound crashed and the emotions that were swirling around at that point when that happened and the gilt market blew up. But this is way wider reaching consequences with this. This is going to touch everywhere because any goods that flow through the United States are going to be impacted by this. And that is a lot. That is a lot of trade and goods. And it's going to bring more and more countries that are going to be closer to China. You can definitely be certain of that. And it's very interesting because when you look at this as well, you know, he's gone Canada and Mexico, 25% tariffs, and then China, 10% tariffs. I wonder why. And again, it's like the 10% tariff on oil. It's because they're far more dependent on China. So, you know, they like to play around and say that China is the enemy, but really they're dependent on China. And it'll be interesting to see what happens with, obviously, the oil industry in Canada. How the government's even going to retaliate? I mean, I don't even know. How is the government going to retaliate? Parliament is prorogued right now. So are they going to literally declare the Emergencies Act and turn the country into a dictatorship again just so they can pass what they want? Economic stimulus plans and just keep themselves in power, because that is a huge risk. And if that happens, then Canadians really need to get to the streets and push back against this, because, I mean, we're coming up on it being 3 years since the Emergencies Act were declared and the Freedom Convoy happened. We have the same lunatic still in power, even though he says he's stepping down. And he is just, I mean, what he has done to the country, and he's put the country in such a terrible place right now with literally kind of no representation. And they're saying that Mark Carney is going to take over the party. I mean, nothing would be more fitting because he is a bankster in Canada. It's run by banksters anyway. So why not put him in charge? Because, you know, we all know that the country's run by banksters anyway. So yeah, go ahead, put a bankster in charge. But I mean, that is just crazy. He is another globalist clown from the World Economic Forum. And yeah, I seriously hope we get a general election soon and we can get these clowns out of power, because at a time like this, you just don't want to be as weak as a position as Canada is in right now. So anyway, guys, I want to thank you so much for watching this. Try and have a great weekend. And we'll have to see how this shit plays out, because it's really not clear at this point. So if you've enjoyed this video, I'd highly recommend that you check out this video, which I did the other week, which explains more about the trade and the implications of the tariffs. And I will see you guys in the next one. Take care of yourselves.